All right, let's get into it. Today, we are breaking down the absolutely massive financial empire of one Paul Triple H Levesque. This is the story of how a legendary wrestler became a true corporate titan. We're going to deconstruct exactly how he built this incredible fortune. So let's just start with the number that makes your jaw drop. His estimated net worth, usually talked about alongside his wife, Stephanie McMahon, is a mind-blowing $250 million. I mean, wow. A number that big really makes you stop and ask,
how on earth did he do it? How does a pro wrestler build that kind of fortune? This wasn't just about winning titles in the ring. No, this was about playing a much, much bigger game. So let's pull back the curtain and look at the blueprint.
Every massive empire has to start somewhere, right? It needs a solid foundation. And for Triple H, that foundation was built brick by brick right inside that wrestling ring with his legendary persona, The Game.
And look, he wasn't just some wrestler, he was one of the absolute most successful performers in the history of the WWE. We're talking about a 14-time world champion who was a main event attraction for decades. And that kind of status, well, it comes with a main event-sized paycheck.
But his income back then wasn't just a simple salary. It was coming from all over the place. You had royalties from every t-shirt and action figure sold, you had paid appearances, and yeah, even some smaller acting gigs like in Blade Trinity. This built him a really nice financial base for sure, but it's not where the real money came from. Not even close.
Okay, so this is where the story takes a huge turn. This is the critical pivot in his career. Triple H took all that success and knowledge from the ring and leveraged it into a super powerful role in the company. He essentially traded in his wrestling boots for a seat in the boardroom.
And he's not just some guy with a fancy title. As Chief Content Officer, he is literally the architect of everything you see on WWE programming. He oversees creative, he's in charge of developing new talent. Basically, he holds the keys to the entire creative kingdom.
And you better believe a job with that much power comes with a serious paycheck. His reported annual base salary is right around $2.8 million. That is a massive jump in his earnings, going from the up and down income of a performer to a steady, multi-million-dollar corporate salary every single year.
But here's the wild part. Even with a salary of almost $3 million a year, we're still not even in the same ballpark as that $250 million number. So what gives? Where did the rest of that massive fortune come from?
And this, my friends, brings us to the final and honestly the most important part of his whole financial journey. Because it's not really about what he earned from a paycheck, it's about what he owns. This is where we find the real secret.
And really, it all comes down to this one simple fact. You can forget the performer paychecks for a second. You can even forget the huge executive salary. The true key to his wealth, the thing that catapulted him into the stratosphere, is his WWE stock.
And this chart just lays it all out perfectly. Just look at this breakdown. His earnings as a performer, the very thing that made him famous, that's the smallest piece of the pie. His executive salary is a nice chunky slice, no doubt, but it is absolutely dwarfed by that massive portion that represents his WWE stock. It's not even a competition.
We are talking about an ownership stake that's valued in the tens and at times hundreds of millions of dollars. This is what we call generational wealth, and it wasn't built just by working for the company, but by owning a huge piece of it.
So let's just zoom out and put all the pieces together, because this whole thing wasn't an accident. It was a strategic climb where each step he took perfectly set up the next one. Let's look at the complete blueprint.
It really boils down to this incredibly smart three-step process. First, you build a brand so big and so undeniable that they can't ignore you. Second, you use that brand and your expertise to get a real seat at the corporate table. And third, the most important step, you use that position to own a piece of the entire business.
At the end of the day, the story of Triple H's fortune is a masterclass in how to evolve a career. It proves that fame can be an incredible launchpad, but real, lasting wealth and power, that comes from turning that fame into corporate influence and ultimately, true ownership.
Which really leaves us with one big question to chew on, right? In today's world of sports and entertainment, is the biggest prize one out there in the spotlight, or is the real game the one for all the marbles actually played in the boardroom? Something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.